looked into someone's eyes beyond seeing them? You felt something about them? You felt their presence? You noticed that there was something about them they felt full of life, or sort of dull, or maybe a little bit that you wanted to retract? So what is this Shen? What is this spirit? How can we tell if a spirit is strong or disturbed? How do we strengthen our own Shen? Let's explore this notion of Shen or spirit and the eyes. According to Chinese face reading, Shen is the spirit with the big S, and it shines through the eyes. It is something that is obvious. You can't fake it. It's present. It's who a person is. It's believed that beyond this medicine, beyond all else, who we are is Shen. It exists all around us, and it comes into us when we're born. Shen is consciousness. It's our divinity. It's all that animates us, and it's housed in our heart, and it shines through our eyes. The heart in Chinese medicine is called the supreme controller, and the image that I have is not so much of a traditional political system, but that the heart is this open reservoir. So divine inspiration comes in when we're born. It travels in through the top of the head, it comes through the eyes, it comes into the mouth and through the throat chakra, and it resides in our hearts. The heart in Chinese medicine offers this pictogram of this empty cup that gushes out our spirit or our blood. Our blood, they say in Chinese medicine, is our liquid consciousness, and it fills us. In fact, when you shake hands with someone, your liquid consciousness touches their liquid consciousness. If they have a nice warm hand, the feeling that you get when you're holding a person's hand, that is your Shen connecting with their Shen on a physical level. But you can also do it through the eyes. When we're connected with our Shen, we know who to be. We know the right way to approach the world. Our intuition is online, and we know which way to go. This light is really immense, and it's quite beautiful. Imagine if our political leaders had connection with the Shen, and they led their lives from that inner knowing. What if we trusted our children could do that? What if we trusted ourselves to do that more? It feels like the world would be a really different place. We wouldn't have so many laws and regulations because we would all know how to be by consulting with our own inner knowing, by consulting with our own divine. When someone says that the eyes are the windows of the soul, it's really true. When a person's Shen or spirit is bright and engaging, it draws us in. We want to be around them. On the other hand, if a person feels disconnected or their Shen is out of sorts or it feels buried, you can tell they dart around, they're not present, they're sometimes jumping out of their bodies, or they're shut down, they're disconnected, they're drawn within themselves, maybe they're depressed. So the truth is that Shen is not corruptible, but sometimes it's not present, or it's hidden, or we're just not connecting with it. Another way that I imagine Shen is that it's like a mirror. You know, sometimes you go into the mirror and there's toothpaste globs on there, and there's muck, and it's been wiped down with a dirty cloth, and the reflection of ourselves is muddied. It's not that our Shen is not there, it's just that it's harder to see. We need to clean the window, we need to clear the reflection. Some people come to me for depression or anxiety, and one way that I work is to support them reconnecting with their Shen, reconnecting with that part of themselves, to brighten it up and to help it shine forth. So there are different levels of Shen. Some say that the master, and perhaps you've seen it, they have this calm presence. They're fully there. They're bright, and they're optimistic, and they're positive. But this quality that shines through them is hard to describe. It's almost magical that they're fully present. A person who is feeling alive, or a person with strong Shen, is engaged. You can see it in a child when they're learning something new, or when a musician is playing their music, when they're fully present and immersed in the thing that they're focused on. Strong Shen is also a real joy to be around, and to observe in other people, and to feel in ourselves. A person who has strong Shen is balanced and centered. They're focused completely on the task at hand. There's this brightness and this energizing aspect to them. It draws you in. You want to be around it. So this is a person who's passionate and present, fully immersed in life. When we're fully immersed in life, when our Shen is strong, we feel like we're on our golden path, and magical things tend to happen. It feels like we're in the right place at the right time, and the right information comes when we need it. We get signs from the universe, like a beautiful bird might cross our path, or we might receive some magical surprise in the mail that we didn't expect. Disturbed Shen is, I suppose, sort of the opposite of that. It's the eyes tend to dart around. The person doesn't feel centered. They might be jumpy within their body. One may feel anxious or depressed, fearful, or erratic. The empty gaze is another indication of some kind of disturbed Shen, and that is a person who's sort of recoiled within themselves, really distant. It could be the result of trauma or illness. And oftentimes there is a sense of detachment. In acupuncture speak, these are all things that we can work on to help to reconnect a person to their Shen, to help brighten them up. So how to read Shen in others? What is your first impression? That matters. What's your first take when you meet a person? This is extremely important to assess it. It's oftentimes something that happens automatically, but it's also something to really be aware of. Look for the light in the eyes. How does it sparkle? Is it present? Are they fully engaged? Does their eyes reflect a spark of life? How are they in the moment? Are their eyes steady and clear, or is there darting? Compare facial expressions to the eyes. So does the smile not meet the eyes, or does the smile extend all the way into the eyes? Is there anything that's disconnected in the presentation? These are ways to read Shen. Now, one really interesting thing about this is that Shen is moving all the time. It's moving within us, but also it's moving on the face. And so Shen is a fun one to play with. As an acupuncturist, certainly we can use points to inspire the change of Shen, but we can also do it through our words. One thing I love to do is play with Shen. Recently, I was at the grocery store and noticed that the woman who was helping me out was kind of going through the motions. She didn't seem particularly upset, but she also didn't seem, terribly inspired. It was probably the end of a long shift. And one thing I noticed about her and wanted to play with her Shen was I noticed that she had a dimple. And I commented that I read faces and that dimples are considered to be this extra charm, and they're very lucky. And when I said that, right away, like, her dimple popped. And she's like, oh yeah, it's like she had forgotten about that. And she even said so. She's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And so I asked her, I said, one thing they say about people with dimples is they get away with things. Like, they can sometimes be a little bit mischievous and they can get away with it. And she, smiled and her dimple was showing, and she's like, yeah, that's definitely happened to me before. I can get away with stuff. And at the end of the exchange, I gave her my money, and she gave me my groceries, but we were both enriched because of it. It was a really fun exchange, and this can happen in something as mundane as at the grocery store, but it can also happen, when your kids come home from school. How was your day? It can happen with your partner. It can happen at the grocery store. It can even be an exchange when you're walking down the street and you meet someone's eyes. A little interaction, a little bit of acknowledgement, like, hey, I'm alive, and hey, you're alive, and it's nice to see you, even if I don't know you, even if we're not going to stop and talk. Like, here we are. I'm present, you're present. I wish to acknowledge you as being here. I wish to acknowledge your being present, and thank you for being here. While Shen is always present, it's also something that we can all go through periods of it feeling like it's a million miles away, or it's not present. Maybe we're going through a stressful period of life. This is very natural. It ebbs and flows. We wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or we're just in a longer term difficult situation. A few years ago, I had a woman come in, and generally speaking, this woman was very full of life, like a real dynamo. A bright smile, shining eyes was her normal modus operandi. In this case, though, she was postpartum. She had a new baby. Her life circumstance was that her husband was working minimally. He was having a hard time finding a good job. She was the primary breadwinner, so she was postpartum and already exhausted with that, plus the burden or responsibility of being the primary breadwinner. She also had in her mind that she was wanting to have a second child, and in her mind there was this idea that they would be 2 years apart. And I noticed that her normal Shen was feeling kind of burdened or overwhelmed, or it was in retreat. She was overwhelmed. And so one way that I encouraged her to connect with her Shen was just backing up. So I asked her, I said, when you were a kid, what did you used to love to do? And she thought about it just for a second. She's like, oh, I've always loved riding horses. And so I said to her, even with your busy work schedule and with a child at home, do you think that you could go maybe on the weekend and find a horse to ride? And she said, yeah, I know the people who have the barn. And she made it a point. That was her assignment. I gave her the assignment of finding a horse to ride. And so she comes back a couple of weeks later, and her Shen was completely present. And I said, wow, what, tell me about the last couple of weeks. How was it? Tell me everything about it. And she said that indeed she found a horse to ride. And she said it was so enlivening to be connected with this horse, and she loved riding it. I had this visual of her. She has this like golden strawberry blonde hair, her hair blowing in the wind as she's galloping on this like wheat colored horse. And she said, yeah, she had this wonderful, amazing ride. But furthermore, that magical state, in my estimation, led to a new life experience. And so she said that everything in her life had actually changed in the intervening 2 weeks. She said that her husband heard back, he got a job. The job was out of state, curiously enough, in a state where they already had another house. And so they were going to be moving to this other house that they already had, and that his salary would be such that she didn't have to work and that she could focus on being a mom. And just that all of those stresses had been almost instantaneously relieved. She also said that she had contemplated this idea and the arbitrary nature of having a delineated time between her children, and she was ready to be more receptive to like letting the magic happen. So she moved away, but I heard from her that indeed she did have her second child and was finding herself to be quite content to be a mom, and really grateful for how everything had aligned. And it felt like the connecting point for her was to reconnect with her Shen and reconnect with the thing that she used to love, that reminded her of her aliveness and reconnected her with her Shen. It was a really beautiful and inspiring thing to witness. So, what are ways that we can stay connected to our Shen? How do we strengthen our Shen? Well, just like this woman, contemplate the thing that you used to love to do when you were a child, before you had the pressures, before the thing that is burdening you or came into effect. Contemplate how if you used to love to draw, like go find some paper and some pens and draw, and just get into that process, get into that experience. If you love to play piano, I work with a woman who was a musician, but she was so ill that she had a hard time playing piano. So I suggested for her just 2 minutes, sit at the piano, just sit there 2 minutes and see how it feels. And it feels like a little bit of that begets more of that and begets more of that. And soon we're feeling much better and much more connected and in alignment with our Shen. When it's appropriate, another way to connect with our Shen is to follow what's in our hearts. So if you're thinking about a person, reach out to that person. They might have a little bit of magic to help your Shen. If you're feeling love in your heart, tell the person. If you're inspired, like with the lady in the checkout line, to comment, to connect with her, or the person walking down the street, share your Shen. That oftentimes is a great way to connect with your Shen, but also to connect with other people's Shen. Pray, meditate, listen. Sometimes just being quiet and going into that inner temple within is a beautiful way to connect with your Shen. In fact, it's a great daily practice to have, just that moment. I have a friend who said that his daily ritual is the first thing in the morning he gets out of bed and he goes for a run. I was like, that is such a brilliant way to connect with your Shen. It gets all of your blood circulation. You get all of the cosmic energy from the morning time shining and raining upon you, even if it's sunny or cold, or you get that feeling of aliveness by being outside, ideally taking in the sunrise. That's a beautiful way to connect with the outside, the Shen of the world, the spirit of the world, the spirit of the elementals, the spirit of the animals and the trees. Like, connect with their Shen to help your Shen feel more alive. Of course, on the other side of that, sleep and nutrition and rest. Sometimes even doing the dishes with presence, feeling the water on your hands. This thing that can seem like a mundane task can be can be really enlivening. My grandmother used to have dishes of all different kinds, and I remember being at her house once, and I said, "Can I wash the dishes?" And she said, "No, sweetie, you know, I was her granddaughter." She's like, you just enjoy. She's like, "I love washing my dishes. I like to look at each one of them as they go by." They were really decorated, florally, gold, embroidered, right, plates that she washed, and she admired them as they went through her line, which is a darling Shen memory that I have as a child. So to recap, follow what's in your heart, experience nature, meditate, pray, listen, express your joy and creativity, painting, writing a card, washing the dishes. Anything that you do with presence and gratitude is going to inspire your Shen to shine. Remember that eyes don't lie. They always tell the truth. What is the truth in your heart? I would love to hear your Shen story. What lights you up? What makes you feel alive? What makes you a unique individual in this planet of all of us who ultimately are one? But I would love to see your side of the facet of the gem that we all are. Thank you for watching. I felt like this video was inspired by my face reading teacher, who was my big Shen illuminator, or one of the people who sparked my Shen. So also thank you to Lillian for being my teacher, and for sharing so generously your heart.